If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
Hello and welcome to Pet Watch, a monthly program about the Williamson County Animal Center and its programs. And today my special guest is Ryne Goetz. Ryne is with the Tennessee Wildlife Services, Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, otherwise known as
TWRA.
TWRA. I was looking up some information about TWRA, and I know it is a state agency.
That's correct.
And a lot of people may not know what you do. I was going to go over the mission statement of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency is to preserve, conserve, manage, protect, and enhance the fish and wildlife of the state and their habitats for the use, benefit, and enjoyment of the citizens of Tennessee and its visitors. The agency will foster the safe use of the state's waters through a program of law enforcement, education, and access.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in a nutshell, what do you guys do?
Well, I'm the wildlife officer in Murray County, Tennessee, out of Region 2, District 22. What we usually do in law enforcement is we enforce all the hunting, fishing, and boating laws of Tennessee. So if you're out hunting, if you're out fishing, if you're out on a boat on the lake somewhere during the summer, you may run into us.
Well, as many hunting areas and lakes that we have in Tennessee, I was astonished to find out that you guys have about 600 employees across the state.
Yes, ma'am.
Performing various functions.
Yeah, we have quite a few people that work for us.
The region that you're in has 25 counties in Middle Tennessee.
I believe that's correct. We're Region 2 is broken up into two districts. District 21, which is kind of Nashville and to the Kentucky state line, and the district I work in is District 22, which is from Williamson County and goes all the way down to Wayne County and across to Franklin County.
So you're the Williamson County connection. You're
Yes,
the Williamson
ma'am.
County officer.
Right now, we've had a vacancy in Williamson County. We've just hired a gentleman that's going through the police academy right now. So right now, there's several different officers that are covering Williamson County calls right now until he kind of gets on his feet.
Yeah. What kind of training do officers have to have? Do you have to go through an academy of some sort?
Yes, ma'am. I've got a 4-year natural resource management degree. I went to the University of Tennessee at Martin. Most of the wardens that you run into are going to have a college degree. Once we got out and applied for this position, we go through about a 6 to 8 week wildlife academy, where we just kind of go over our main laws, do some practical field work stuff. And then once that's over with, we'll go to the Tennessee Police Academy, and then we'll graduate. We're all post-certified, so we go through the same training that all your local police, sheriff's department, stuff like that goes through.
And interesting. On top of the fact that you studied natural resources,
Yes, ma'am.
was that your major?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's great. That's like a conservation or
Yes, ma'am.
similar to that. Okay. So in addition to the college degree, you get the law enforcement academy type training.
Yes, ma'am.
And all of that training in defending yourself. And what do you carry every day that a police officer would also carry?
Equipment that I use, we've got our state issued firearm, pepper spray, handcuffs, a baton. That's really about it. We don't carry any tasers or anything like that.
So if you had to do enforcement, most of your work seems to be being sure that people have the proper licenses
Yes, ma'am.
and permits to do the things that they're doing. But in the case that they're not, that's called poaching. And is illegal hunting one of the issues that you have?
There's several different violations that we run into. Most everyone that we run into that's out hunting is going to have a firearm, which everybody that we check for the most part are good, law-abiding people. However, there are some instances where we do run into someone that could potentially cause us harm or something like that. So, you know, that's why we to protect ourselves.
They're hunting without a license, or they're hunting out of season, or
it just depends. You know, they could have been someone that's been caught by us several times before, and had their license revoked or something like that.
Okay.
Most of the time on simple, you know, maybe a hunt without a license, if we haven't had any prior run-ins with that person or anything like that before, most of the time we'll issue a citation. But sometimes, you know, there are instances where we do arrest people and take them to jail.
And especially if they're on someone else's land and they're not supposed to be. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. We get a lot of calls about trespassing, especially in Murray County where I'm at. Usually every weekend we get a call about someone crossing someone else's property and whatnot.
So does TWRA issue all the hunting and fishing licenses in Tennessee?
We do.
Okay. And what your main location in the agency's headquartered in Nashville at the Ellington Ag Center, you can get those licenses there, and then other outlets are authorized to issue those?
Yes, ma'am. We you can get them at the main office, at like I said, at Ellington, at the Region 2 office down there. We've got a license booth there. But any licensed agent in Tennessee, there's a list of them online on our TWRA website. You can go on there, find those, or you can also buy your license online. We've got several different options as far as trying to get those licenses.
What another part of your agency's job is to manage the state's forests, and we have a lot of state parks with a lot of forest land and some wildlife management areas, don't we?
We do. We don't necessarily take care of state parks. That's kind of their.
That's their
they're
territory.
in a different. They're under the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. We do have public hunting areas. A lot of them are wildlife management areas. I'm not sure how many across Middle Tennessee we've got. We've got several. There's usually at least one in, you know, I'd say at least one in every county. Maybe some counties don't have any, but there are quite a few in the region.
Is there one in Williamson County?
There's Haley Jaquith around College Grove area.
Oh, okay.
In Murray County, we've got Williamsport WMA, which is where the fishing lakes are at. We've also got Yanali. It's about 12 to 13,000 acres down there of public hunting land along the Duck River on the east side of Columbia.
Wow. Okay.
And we usually have a lot of people from different states come. I've checked everywhere from Maine to New Mexico and everywhere in between.
Wow.
So
it's kind of like the tourists in Franklin. You never know where they're going to come from.
Yes, ma'am.
So you've got hunters that come to the Tennessee wildlife managed areas.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that specifically what those wildlife management areas are for?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So they're not for pleasure or camping or hiking. They're strictly for hunting?
Yes, ma'am. They're mainly for wildlife management purposes. And us being the state agencies that we promote hunting and fishing.
Right.
So we want those to happen on those lands. The camping, some of those areas do allow camping on them. You just have to look at the guide or look online. This is our 2016-2017 Tennessee Hunting and Fishing Guide, or Hunting Guide. But a lot of those in the back, it'll have all the different wildlife management areas that are listed, along with the telephone number of the manager that oversees that area.
Okay.
So if there's not a particular instance in there where it says anything about camping, you may give them a call before going out there. But for the most part, those are for the hunters, and the camping areas are for the hunters that come and stay like over a weekend or a couple of days. Right.
And most of your hunters know the law and obey the law and know the seasonal requirements. And
yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted everybody to know kind of a broad view of the other things that you do, but what affects us most at Williamson County Animal Center is where our paths kind of cross sometimes.
Yes, ma'am.
When we get calls about nuisance animals or strange wildlife in a yard, because for the most part, the major population in Williamson County lives close together in small municipalities, so there is still a lot of rural land. When people encounter wildlife, we always tell them the number one rule is leave it alone.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree with that?
I would. That's probably a good rule of thumb is to leave it alone. A lot of people, especially like with snakes and stuff like that, if somebody does happen to get bit, most of the time it's, around the hand or something like that. And, that's where they've tried to reach down to pick it up or something like that. So,
yeah.
That would be a good rule of thumb, is just to leave it alone and kind of keep your distance from it.
Well, we can skip ahead to snakes and let's cover them first.
Okay.
That's the thing people are scared of the most.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, how many different kinds of snakes are there in Middle Tennessee, approximately?
Probably around 20 or 30.
Okay.
We've only got 2 venomous here in Middle Tennessee. That's going to be your timber rattlesnake and your cottonmouth. Or not cottonmouth, copperhead, I'm sorry.
Copperhead, okay.
West Tennessee is going to be, you're going to have cottonmouths over there.
So there's 4 poisonous snakes in Tennessee, and just over the whole state. And
Yeah, I believe so.
And I think I wrote those down: copperhead, timber rattler, western cottonmouth, and the western pygmy rattler is somewhere in Tennessee.
I believe that sounds correct.
Okay, so there's 30 to 35 species of snake.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
chances are, when we come across one on our property, in our woodpile, in our garden, in the street, out bicycling. My husband rides bicycles. He sees snakes cross the road all the time. Number one rule, leave them alone.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There are some common sense rules for walking through the woods. If you're going to go take a walk in a wooded area, how do you avoid snakes?
Especially now, there are a lot of snakes moving right now with fall coming on. If you are walking through the woods, just kind of keep a eye out right in front of you. I wouldn't walk through the woods just really fast. Just kind of take glances as you're taking steps. Try to avoid walking around like any area around like a log, or if you're around a barn or something like that that's got some tin or something that's falling down on the ground. Before you reach down and pick it up, you may shake it a little bit just to
look under it
to make sure that something's not underneath there. You may even get a stick and flip it over, because a lot of times, with that tin being laying right there on the ground, it's gonna draw a lot of heat right there, and that's where that snake's gonna want to be, is underneath it.
And the wood pile. A lot of people
yes,
have
ma'am.
wood piles that have sat all summer, been seasoned, ready for the winter
Yes, ma'am.
in their yards, and they need to pay attention because a snake wants to be what? Secluded,
He wants to be somewhere where it's warm and away kind of from
warm,
everything else.
and quiet and still. And it's when you invade his space that it makes the snake mad.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that's when you can be bitten by non-venomous snakes,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Any snake could bite you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you don't really want to have to try to decide what it was.
Yeah, just take precautionary measures as far as just kind of looking around before you, just so to speak, dive in to grab a piece of wood or something like that. But they're mainly there just because it's a good hiding spot for small rodents, mice,
Right.
voles. That's why they're there, is because there's probably going to be something that they're feeding on that lives around in that area too.
And does water attract certain species of snakes? Are there more along streams and rivers?
There are some. Usually every summer, we get a lot of people that say, "Hey, I saw a snake." Most of the time, it's going to be just like a water snake,
Right.
And they're not venomous. But
when
they
you
are,
see it coming across the water with its head stuck out, you best take precaution. Don't tangle with it, and assume it could be. It could be a water moccasin, or they call it, or a...
Yeah, the best thing to do is, if you do see one coming towards you or something like that, just, try to make a little bit of noise. Just because it's, coming at you doesn't really mean it's aggressive or anything like that. It may just be trying to get to the other side, and you've startled it off the bank or something like that, and that's why it's swimming across the water.
And canoeing and kayaking is popular around here,
It
but
is.
the people that do it are not necessarily great outdoors people, that they just want to pop their kayak into the Harpeth River up here in Franklin and canoe for a couple of hours. But they need to be aware that wildlife does live along those rivers and banks, because they're never cleared.
Yes,
They're and that's a good place for them to hide. And copperheads will lay out on the rocks, and you just need to be aware of your surroundings and not go jumping out of the kayak into the bank where the deep woods are.
I'd say most of the time, you know, as far as just swimming, you're not going to really run into many snakes. But
Right.
it's when you kind of get out there on the bank or
On the
something like that,
banks.
just be aware. Really, no need to be just, you know, deathly afraid of them.
Right.
But do give them their space and do respect them. Also, in Tennessee, it's against the law to kill any snake. We don't have an open hunting season on snakes, so it would be illegal to kill one.
Okay, so that's something good for people to know, because your first impulse may be, if you're in the garden and you have a hoe and you're planting your bushes and the little snake goes by, your impulse may be to kill that snake. But it is illegal to kill any snake in Tennessee, is what you said.
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
so that's important to remember. And secondly, it's illegal to take an animal like a snake or any other animal from the woods, from the wild, and take it in your care.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, any native wildlife that's here in Tennessee, you can't possess it. If you do, per se, you know, a snake, a little box turtle, terrapin, you know, a baby deer, those are all illegal to possess unless you've got some sort of like rehabilitator's permit or something like that.
Right. That's interesting, because little kids always want to pick up the turtles and bring them home and take care of the turtle. But
Yes, ma'am.
that's not the best thing for the turtle.
No, ma'am.
It's not the best thing for the cycle of wildlife, and it's not the best thing for the child if it bites it.
Yes, ma'am. A lot of times, you know, you don't know if that animal in particular is carrying, you know, any sort of disease. A lot of people, you know, will want to take care of it. They'll think it's abandoned, per se, a baby deer. They'll think it's abandoned by the mother, which actually a fawn, that's kind of its natural instinct is to hide. That's, you know, the little one when it's born, it really doesn't have any scent.
Right.
It's got good camouflage as far as its spots and stuff like that. So its natural instinct is to just lay down, and mom will wander off because she's got a little bit of scent, and she ends up coming back to let the fawn feed every 4 to 6 hours. Now, when we come up on someone that has taken a baby fawn into their possession, a lot of times we see that they're malnourished. You know, they take care of them for a week or so, and then they kind of get to where they don't really want to take care of it. It becomes a hassle for them, and that deer just ends up living in a box or something like that. And it's kind of, we hate to see that, and a lot of times on those, once they do any animal, once they start getting fed by people, they become imprinted. So we can't even turn those animals back loose for fear that, you know, if that animal begins to start you know, starving or something like that, it sees somebody and comes running up, and you know, it could potentially attack them.
And if you had just left it alone for 8 hours, you would have seen that mom came back maybe, and it wouldn't have been the best thing to take it in. You mentioned on a licensed rehab, and many of our viewers are familiar with Walden's Puddle.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is just north of up in Davidson County, and they take in wildlife. They're an authorized wildlife rehabilitator, and you have a list of all of those on your website. That's the one we might be most familiar with. But I saw this year they made put something on Facebook, and they had like 22 fawns. That, I mean, that's overwhelming for anyone. And they had a whole line of bottle feeding in an attempt to teach them how to feed themselves and how they would have been fed if they'd kept with their mother. But just imagine if half of those people would have just let the fawn sit there a few hours, they might not have ended up at Walden's Puddle, and they might have grown up naturally in the forest. So people need to think twice that humans, we may not always know better than nature.
Yeah, a lot of times and they take, you know, a multitude of different species up there. I know I've taken, probably just in the past couple years, I've taken baby possums, some rabbits, some baby red foxes, and just, you know, I think I took a baby deer or two up there.
Yeah, baby squirrels. We've had a lot, even in this 1 week at the shelter. We've had two. And again, it's like baby birds. They will come back. If you can put them back in the nest, it's an old wives' tale. I think that the birds won't return if you handle the chicks.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's not true. So try to return, try to ignore before you take it in and take it out of the wild is really the best thing for people to remember. We get a lot of calls, and I know you do too, that people have a nuisance animal on their property in Williamson County. Of course, that's going to happen when you have houses placed where animals used to live. We see a lot of raccoons turn over a lot of garbage cans. The animal center here in Williamson County does not deal with wildlife, with one exception, and you don't go out and always entrap raccoons or skunks. Now, what do you recommend to people who have this going on their property?
Here in Williamson County, there's a lot of wildlife human interaction just because a lot of the subdivisions are growing into old forests and stuff like that.
Right.
So, I mean, there is a lot of human and wildlife interaction. The biggest thing that we run into as far as when people call us and say, hey, I've got a raccoon that keeps, or a opossum that keeps hanging out on my back porch at night, what can I do to get rid of it? A lot of times when we go out or talk to them on the phone, a lot of times they're feeding their animals, dogs or cats out back, or they're throwing scraps out or something to that effect, which, if there's food on the ground, a lot of these animals are going to be opportunistic, and especially if they're wandering through somebody's yard and they smell it, they're going to hang out right there.
Sure.
So the biggest thing that we tell people is to try to clean that area up. Don't feed your dogs or cats outside. If you've got cats, try to feed them maybe up high. That way, if you're feeding them down on the ground level, it's harder for an animal to get up there to that level to feed. Also, maybe move it a little bit closer to your house. A lot of these animals, at the beginning are going to be a little bit shy of coming up to those areas. Feed them in a garage, close the door. Feed them inside for a little while until they're done feeding, and then pick it up and throw it away or something like that.
So if you remove the food sources,
yes, ma'am,
they're not going to come looking in your yard again. And I've heard grills can be attractive to animals.
They can, yeah. Just a lot of either like the seasoning or just like the fat when it drips down into that pan and gets stuck on the grill. That's even after it's cooked, that's still going to emit an odor that could potentially draw one of those animals in. Also, like on trash cans and stuff like that, if you've got a lid, keep your lid closed. I know a lot of instances on like some of the big garbage cans, a lot of those doors are flipped open, and you'd be surprised on how many of those animals can have found a way to get into those big trash cans.
Yeah, I had a raccoon take a log off the top of the can, snap it open the garbage bag, and open the baggie and eat the chicken and leave the bones. So they are very resourceful.
They are.
You can pretty much bet that it's a raccoon. If it took a lot of creativity, I think they're one of the smartest ones to figure things out. So you said clean up around your yard. Don't put any food sources outside. And also common sense is don't have high grass or a heavy bush area because that's where you said snakes like to hide, fawns like to lay down. So the more you can clear your property around your home, the better you are.
Yeah, if you don't want to have if you don't want to have any interaction or anything like that, that would probably be the best thing to do. It's probably not a foolproof plan, but it will. If it's harder for them to hide somewhere, more than likely they're not going to want to hang around there. But still be aware that even if you do take some of those precautions, you still may wind up with those animals wandering through your yard from time to time.
Yeah, we're running out of time, but I want to mention one thing is when you have wildlife near your homes, animal control doesn't always come pick it up. If you see an animal acting like it's ill or might have rabies, it's walking wobbly or foaming at the mouth or exhibiting odd behavior, then animal control will come and address that. So when then I would recommend people call TWRA, have a conversation on the phone. What are my options? You have ways to keep deer out of your garden. You have lots of great resources on your website. Even what time of year to plant what tree. So anything to do with growing trees, taking care of your garden, and working in concert with our wildlife, so that both the wildlife gets to live its life and the people get to have their garden. There's so many resources there. I want people to know to go at tn.gov/TWRA.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's so many wonderful things you can find there. We've only touched the surface of what you guys do, but
just about any native wildlife that's in Tennessee or passes through, there's probably going to be some sort of little write-up on that animal on our website. So,
and I found out there were like 50 kinds of salamanders just by looking at
we have quite a bit.
Yeah, it's amazing that all these species are identified and some being protected, and we want to keep it that way so we don't destroy all of our natural lands, because people do enjoy the outdoors and we want them to go there and enjoy it safely and not destroy the animal population, but respect it.
Yeah, also on as far as like litter and stuff like that goes, you know, if you do happen to go out to some of these areas and camp and stuff like that, pick up after you know, all your trash and stuff. I saw a post yesterday on a social media site that a raccoon had got its head stuck in a peanut butter jar, and you know, I think it was in Florida, and they were able to go down there and capture that animal and
And
get
some human left that peanut butter jar in the woods or threw it in, and it washed down that way. I went for a hike in a beautiful natural area up at Narrows of the Harpeth. We came around to where the water comes down, and we're coming to the river, and there's a pile of trash and an empty laundry detergent bottle, and you're like, that really doesn't need to happen. There's so many places in every county to get rid of your refuse, and if you're a camper or hunter, you usually know that. So that's a good point to make. Let's not trash up what wildlife and land we do have in Tennessee. Let's try to keep it clean. I thank you so much for all your wonderful information today, and I encourage our viewers to look at the TWRA site, and they'll find something there for everybody, I think, through backyard gardening to hunting licenses and boating. To wind up, I want to let our viewers know that on October 15th, the Animal Center will be out at Barktoberfest. It's from 12 to 5 p.m. This year it's at the park at Harlansdale Farm. And then on the 22nd of October, we'll be at Happy Retails at their new location in Franklin. And on October 29th, we'll be in downtown Franklin at the Pumpkin Fest for another adoption event at 5 Points there in front of the County Archives and Museum. I hope you're following us on our Facebook page and our website, adoptwcac.org, to find out more about what we're doing and how you could volunteer to help at the shelter. If you're thinking of adopting a pet, please come to one of our events or come by the shelter. We're at 106 Claude Yates Drive, just north of Franklin High School. There's a little construction going on out front on Hillsborough Road, but you can turn on Claude Yates. We're back there, we're open, and we'd love to see you there to adopt an animal. And I hope you enjoyed this session of Pet Watch and learned something about our Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency.
If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
Rain Again by Gail Bunton Haddock. It's green again now that the rain has come back. I've been out in it. My feet are wet and getting cold, but no matter. The land was parched, the leaves brittle dry with fire and ever-present threat. With the rain has come a hush. It has settled on the far hills and across the fields. We were ready for the relief of this rain. Sometimes slow and soft, sometimes hard and slanting on a rush of wind, and then a quietness that heals the brutality of a too long drought.